we still go down, you know, and I go to my different relatives, and they get to see, you know, who they're related to, and they know all their cousins down there. Well, a lot of them. And then my sister lives here in Bozeman, and so you know, they see her.
I've never met your sister.
Oh yeah, I'll have to introduce you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that your sister.
Yeah, that's funny. I thought you had.
No.
Yeah, I think you. Well, maybe you did when you came down to Crow to the Little Bighorn. You might have bumped into her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And she's married and she's got 2 kids.
Huh.
So yeah, so they definitely feel connected as an Indian person to their family. Maybe not quite so much to the Crow community, but there's so many Crow Indians that live in family housing too that they've made friends with over the years, and so they know.
Are they learning the language at all, or picking up on that at all?
You know, there's a lot of words I teach them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's difficult to learn a language if you're not having someone who's around who speaks it fluently.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of words that you can learn. You know, you can learn all the animals, all the colors,
Sure.
Numbers, basic phrases. You know, but yeah, learning how to speak a language fluently is pretty difficult thing.
Yeah. Birdie talked about the tribal language project that she's been involved with and how important that is, and it's great that she's involved in that.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a great project, and I hope that, you know, it has success. And
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how much Crow is actually still spoken down there.
Yeah.
It's a surprise to me every time we go to visit, and it's such a point of hope that language still is. It's so alive still.
Oh yeah, extremely. Like I said, 40 years and over down there. If you're Crow Indian, you know, 90% spoke Crow.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing how far it's fallen, you know, onto this next generation. So they definitely need to institutionalize stuff like Birdie's doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to have documented for posterity that you want to share with the world?
Yeah, let's see. That's a good question.
Shane's final words of wisdom.
You know, I guess if I could just share with you some of the stuff that I've been involved with here.
Absolutely.
The skeleton that was discovered over there on the Shields River, the Flathead Creek, and which is an eyesight clear, plain view of the Crazy Mountains. They're not that far in the watershed, actually, the Crazy Mountains, and on the west side. And so there was a skeleton found there back in 1968 of a 2-year-old boy, and it's actually they did some DNA tests on it. A guy from Denmark, and his results found that the skeleton there represents a direct ancestor to 80 to 90% of all the Indians on both continents. And so it's a remarkable discovery, and you know, it's getting ready to be published here. It's been getting reviewed now for about almost feels like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point it's going to come out, but you know, to be able to have that knowledge now and to put it into the context of that place, and I don't know, it just makes me even more strongly I guess committed to that land there. You know, when my daughters were born, all my kids were born, you know, we always saved the placenta, and then we went and buried it over there on the Musselshell River, which is not that far from, because I knew that's where Sara was born.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my own kind of ceremony that I decided, and my wife said, you know, we saved this placenta, we can bury it here, you know, and I was like, wow, we just drive over to the Musselshell River and just bury it over there. So we're definitely connected to the land, and going back, you know, 12,000 years, and even before that, and so that's a great feeling, you know, and it's just to know that all those years, you know, we were here, and how much, you know, love and respect they put into burying that little boy, you know, with all those points. You know, there was 118 objects in there, and he's kind of like a King Tut, really, of North America. his family didn't have any slaves, and they didn't have any wheat or agriculture, and so they were hunter gatherers, and so it was a huge wealth of stuff that they put in there for this 2-year-old who had never really done anything. He never hunted. He never killed anyone. He wasn't some elder. He was just a 2-year-old baby. And so, it says a lot about our culture and I think our values. And so that story there has kind of, again, you could almost throw a rock and hit Fort Parker from where that burial is at. And that was the great-great-great-great-grandfather's land, Sarah Shane's grandfather. His name was Mountaintail. And he was one of the men who signed the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty for the Crow tribe. So that was his homeland, and going back that far, at least I know my family's there. And his son was 4 times, and that was my grandma's dad, Sara Shane. And so long history there in my family, and then with the boy, and now going down to my children. And so hopefully we'll be here in another 11,000 years, and people will still be respecting this place. So I guess that's about all I have to say. I want to thank you guys for doing this.
So Shane, would you be comfortable talking at all about the repatriation or any of that, or not quite yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now Sara Danza has asked me to help her repatriate the bones, and so I've approached the tribes in Montana, and I've told them that we want to have the bones repatriated, and so no one has objected to that, and so we're taking a long, slow process of having the different tribal historic preservation officers report back to their elders, tell them the story, and ask for their advice and input on how to move forward. But we're definitely going to put the bones back where they were found, and then we want to have a memorial in that area there for all the tribes that would make it a public place where people could learn about the history of this boy, and all the tribes would have some type of a representative piece of artwork or something there. So that's the dream, that's the vision. Of course, it all costs money.
Right.
And who's going to pay for it, and how are we going to do that? Those are still things that remain to be seen. I think Sara Danza is starting a website to raise money for this. I think it's called the Save the Anzac site or something like that.
We'll help promote that.
Yeah. Yep. And like I said, we would need money to pay for the reburial and the memorial. I think the Crow tribe, I haven't approached them yet, but maybe if I approached them to pay for a burial, they might do that. They might not, though. I don't know. It kind of depends. The response from the tribes, for most of the tribes, has not been one that they have not responded in a way that indicates that they really want those bones, or that they want to have control over them. They've all kind of said, go ahead and take the lead on it. And so I've been kind of the point person on that. It's been good in a lot of ways. I'm not getting paid, so I'm independent. I can't get fired. I really don't have much of an interest in it. I've had a few people ask me, are there official negotiations yet? And because apparently I'm not an official representative. But I always tell them, not really. Because I'm not really official. On the other hand, I think probably whatever I come up with is probably going to happen. And I'm working in conjunction with the Kootenai Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. What's his name?
Is it Francis?
Yes, Francis Ald. So he's been awesome. He's a great person and incredibly knowledgeable, and I've just been basically following his lead, and I told him that whatever you think that I should do, I'll probably listen to you. Because the Crow tribe was kind of more or less, they didn't show a lot of passion and pursuing it. They asked me to go ahead and do it. And, I mean, they asked me to go ahead and take care of the repatriation process, and then when it got to the point where the burial was going to happen, that I would probably find someone to do that. And we've already asked Larson Medicine Horse, and he's agreed to do it. So.
Oh, good.
So what about the other child? Yeah, the other skeletal remains that was a few thousand or 8,000 or something above or younger, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with that?
I don't know who has that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I haven't really. Sara Danza and I, for all the times that we've kind of gotten together and emailed back and forth, there really hasn't been a lot said.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of going with what she wanted to go with. I don't know if she still has those bones or where they're at, or if they want to test those too.
Mm-hmm. I can see the older one being the critical bones, but I'm curious about the other ones.
Well, that's what Francis said too, is that he wants to see both of those boys buried. The one boy I think was 6 years old.
Yeah.
So that's been always interesting to me too, is that those two boys were buried in almost the exact same place, thousands of years apart. What does that say about that place,
Yeah.
Well, it was an ancient burial site.
Yeah.
And I think Larry Larin knows that, and he said that, and that's why they don't dig there anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And just across the road is where the Wilsaw Cemetery is at.
Really?
Oh,
I didn't know that. Oh, that's
Yeah, in
interesting.
fact, when I was given directions on, whoops, should I put that?
Yeah, that's good.
When I was given directions on how to get to the Anzac site, I was told to go to the cemetery.
Wow.
And then right across the entrance from the
That's
cemetery is where.
Interesting.
Really? Huh.
So there's an ancient burial there at the same place where the cemetery
Cemetery
was at.
is.
But of course they would have never known that there was an ancient burial there when they set that cemetery up.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the
It's
question
like a
too.
Stephen
Would they have
King book,
even?
you know?
Would they have
The other
known?
two.
Would they have known the first one was there when
Right.
the second one was? Obviously
I mean,
not,
that's
unless there's
thousands of
been
years
some
ago.
kind
Thousands
of.
of years later.
Yeah, it would have just been they had chosen that site for a specific reason, and it might have been the same reason. I wonder what the astral alignments are there.
Well, one of the things is about the place is the highest spot in the Shields Valley.
Oh, really?
So
Oh, that's
that
interesting.
makes sense.
That's-
Yeah, if you get up on the hill there, you get an outlook.
real
You can
view.
see the whole valley. It was
Wow.
great for hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
So that
And
makes
people
sense.
have been there for thousands and thousands of years, and I think that was the key spot in that whole area. And what's really interesting about that is if you drive a little bit further south and you turn around and look, it is the most spectacular view, because you're coming up over like this great big precipice kind of, and here's the bridgers over here and the crazies right here, and then right directly in front of you are the Apsaricas. This is just going south of Wilsaw. You have to get up on the hill a little ways, and every time I go to White Sulphur Springs and come back and drive through there, and every time I hit that spot, and it's been years, I remember the first time I hit that spot looking around saying, whoa, just like something, this is a spot where people came and looked at this place thousands and thousands of years ago and said, man, look at this place here, this is the place. And we're still saying that today. And then that Anzac thing is there. And then when I went there and I told those guys, I said, just right down the road there's the place where I come in my car and I look around and I say, this is like one of the places in the world where it's like really special. And like anyone would say that, and you probably know where I'm talking about. You know exactly.
I know
There's
exactly
a
where it
little
is.
house
It's
off to the left over there.
It's an amazing, that whole stretch right there is so beautiful.
And then once you're over by Ringling where the hills are like this right there too, that's like this really weird little area. But it's such a personality for that whole little region. All those little spots have their own personality and their own views, and every time of the year is different. And so it's just we're still enjoying that today. And as a Crow person, I feel so lucky to have all this knowledge. People have lived and died and never knew that 11,000-year-old boy was there, but somehow intuitively probably did. But now we know with scientific fact.
Right.
And so what a story. It's just incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. I It's interesting how a gentleman, I can't pronounce his name, the Denmark guy.
Oh yeah, Eski.
Yeah.
Eski.
How do you say it?
Eske Willerslev.
Okay, Eske.
Yeah, Eski.
Okay. Anyway, it's interesting that he published that article just a few weeks ago or a month now ago. It's like he's building this case, and the final thing is going to be this Fansik. I mean, that's going to be the final,
That's incredible.
nail in his coffin for his case that he's building. So
It seems like it because he had a 24,000-year-old Siberian. What also was really remarkable here is that we get this grant to study in the Altai, and these are the same people that he found that 24,000-year-old boy, and the DNA is somehow aligned with this other guy over here.
And here's this, it just keeps giving more credence and more credence to that Siberian land bridge theory. And for so long, in recent history, we've been talking about all of these other alternative theories, and yet that still seems to be the story. That's still everything.
Well, I don't know if they necessarily came over through the land bridge, but they skirted the land in boats.
From that direction, though,
Yeah, they came from that direction. They came from
there.
That's where they came from.
As opposed to sort of the Atlantic theory. It seems like that's where they all kind of came from.
Says this definitely came from there.
I wouldn't say that that was the only way. I think maybe there was a few different ways.
Right.
But that way, is becoming more obvious that's how they got into Montana, probably.
I think
if 80% are descended from this child, and this child is going to be obviously descended from that child on the other side.
25,000 child,
There's not going to be a lot of people coming in from any other
place. It's incredible how many people are related. When you think about it, there was millions of people who were related here. I don't know if you could say that same thing about some of those European regions, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we're talking about 2 whole continents here.
Right.
And
but just think, you just were saying, just your great-grandmother, there's 500 descendants. There you go. Think about how far that was.
A lot of sex. Yeah. A lot of unprotected sex going on.
There you go. Pre-AIDS sex.
Even with a high child mortality,
Yeah.
And,
y'all did the job.
Yeah, that's right. So, be fruitful and multiply. And, I'm trying to keep up with that same.
There you go. Well, you certainly are. You're definitely giving your own contribution.
Yeah.
But the cool thing too is that the 24,000-year-old is a child.
Yeah.
And this one is a child, and that's what's amazing to me. So
there's so many things amazing, but you're right. And in fact, in the 2-year-old child at that's a game changer.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate story here with those 118 points.
Right.
I mean, that is off the chart romantic story of all time.
Absolutely.
It's the most compelling caveman story that has ever existed.
Yeah.
And once it kind of gets out there, I think, and I'd like to be able to tell the story too, be able to go and, I'd like to get some type of publication out of it. I am getting my name on this one with Eski.
That's great,
That's great.
It's going to need a narrative. There's going to be the scientific story that's going to get out into nature and science.
But can you read that article that I couldn't read that article you wrote.
So
you're going to be the one who
that's
tells
what you
the story.
can do. It's
I have
to be the narrative.
Exactly.
And that's really what your contribution here could be, is to put this into terms that really gives it that romantic story that we all will want to hear.
Oh yeah, it could be easily like one of those Nova.
Yes.
Oh,
1 hour or 2 hour, you can go there and you're going to look at all the points. It'd be nice to have them all laid out.
Yeah.
Or, put to where they were. I mean, just imagine.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and what we have now with special effects and camera photography and being able to zoom in on the crazy mountains and pull out and see the whole region and where the animals went and why this was a great place to hunt.
Abby can do that.
Yeah.
She can do that.
I mean, see, there you go, Abby. Get on it, man.
Fly out. You can jump out of the camera and get the full, plummeting down.
Oh my God,
there.
I can see it now. Absolutely, it's just awesome. You're hired.
I'll work on it.
Another project for you.
We'll have to pay after everything's over.
There'll be money somewhere down the road.
Just trust us on that.
Exactly.
Take a leap of faith, if you will.
Literally and figuratively.
It's the work that's important.
It's the
information that's
It really
important.
is. It really is.
The money wouldn't be
It's the spirit.
It
It's
is.
the spirit that's important.
Absolutely.
You know, the knowledge and the content, you know, that's important too, because that's who we really are. But you know, the spirit of the land and the spirit of the people, and I mean, if you can get that to come through,
Yeah.
because that's going to last forever.
Absolutely.
You know, and that will be what we cling to, and that's what we've always clinged to, and that's why they buried those points with that boy.
Right.
You know, because that was a precious, priceless spirit that to them was just like.
And that's the eternal presence. I mean, that's the eternal
Right.
presence that here. We're all just temporary here,
Right.
all of us.
Yep.
You know, the spirit's here.
Right.
We just either tap into it or we don't.
Yep. Yep. So
That's really what
thank
it's
you
about.
for everything you do.
Sure. It's all for you, Shane.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, well.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's been great.
Is that
Look
little boy, did I remember reading something about the Yaqui with him? The Anzac little boy? The Yaqui?
They said there was one Yaqui, or the
Or-
Yaquis weren't related to him. Isn't that what the paper
I
said?
can't remember, but
So
something about the Yaqui.
There was two groups that maybe somehow weren't descendants of his,
Okay, and the Yaqui
and the
was
Yaqui
one
was
of them.
one of them.
Okay, because Larry's Yaqui.
That is weird.
Larry
Yeah.
has
Oh,
his Yaqui.
really?
So
Oh,
I
that's
knew
right,
there was something
huh?
with the Yaqui, and I'm like,
Wow.
I gotta reread that article.
Yeah.
To
Well, see, there's
explain
all
the
these
Yaqui.
different migrations,
Right.
Yeah.
and there's no question that they came at different times.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
but I think they definitely came from Liberia because the DNA shows that. But once
Yeah.
they came down, they took off out into the Pacific,
Yeah.
and the New Zealand Maori.
Right.
Right.
I mean, the
Oh,
sweet
yeah.
potato.
Yeah.
I mean, that was developed in South America.
Yeah.
It wasn't developed in the Pacific.
Right.
You know, and then they took it over there.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is pretty irrefutable evidence that American Indians colonized the South Pacific.
Absolutely.
But all the way from Hawaii, all the way down to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then from the, Tierra del Fuego, all the way up.
Yeah.
So we were like some of the original, greatest of all time navigator.
Yeah.
explorers.
Explorers, travelers,
The-
discoverers.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, far beyond Magellan or anything
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. Because he was using tools that were really rudimentary compared to the stuff that these guys were using.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you look at the New Zealand Maori, the technology they had over for open sea travel,
Uh-huh.
I mean, all of the different scientific technology that they used, the birds, the clouds, the fish,
Yeah.
the swells of the ocean,
Mm.
every single thing that you could lay your eyes or your ears or your nose
Mm-hmm.
They used
on
They
was an
used it.
indicator of
Yeah.
where they were at.
It's
But
amazing.
it would take centuries, I mean, thousands of years to develop that kind of knowledge.
Oh, for sure.
And then to be able to master it without sextants,
Right.
right? Without
Stars.
sails,
Yeah,
masts.
yeah.
Yeah.
These
The
guys
stars
rode.
played a huge role in this. I absolutely convinced. The
Oh, yeah.
stars Played a
Yeah, the
huge
stars.
role
Yeah.
in all of it. It's the
Yeah.
other piece that we discount. We're so used to just thinking about the landscape, and we forget to look up because this is where people lived. They lived outside under those stars
Yep.
every night.
Yep.
They knew how to chart them, navigate through them. They knew exactly where they were going to
Yeah.
be. They were the constant. They were the
Yep.
order. This was the chaos.
Yeah.
That's that dichotomy that's so
Mhm.
prevalent in every culture, is that order and chaos. And the sky was predictable and understandable, where this world was not. You never knew what was
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah.
So the
Especially in
stars played a
Montana.
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Roll the dice.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut us
Yeah.
off.
Thank you.
But
yeah,
I'm going to
you
ask
know.
for a quick favor, because we're going to put together a little Christmas card vignette for Extreme History. Would you
Mhm.
mind doing just a few seconds on camera about what Extreme History means to you? Would you mind just saying
Yeah.
a few words about that? So you can choose whatever camera you want to do, but this one? Okay. So yeah, if you could just